Here on Dad's Sport Ball Podcast. How is everyone doing today? We got myself, Cole Dizzle, and Matt the Weenie Wiener, and Jeremy Wayne Hirschberg. Sorry, I don't have a really, I don't,
Yeah,
I don't have a
it's a
nickname for you yet.
name. It's a tough name to come up with a nickname for.
Yeah,
So that's fair.
Jay
But I'm
Bear,
doing good.
Jay Bear.
Sitting here in beautiful sunny California, enjoying the
Beautiful
weather.
sunny Florida.
Oh,
How you doing, Cole? How's the weather
I'm,
out there in Seattle?
yeah, I'm in sunny Seattle.
Frizzly, Washington.
Yes, it's beautiful here. The sun may show up. I don't know. It's somewhere. It's like in one of those Superman movies where like Lex Luthor like shoots down the sun. It's like it's post-apocalyptic. So that's how I'm doing.
Groot stole the sun this time.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's just get into it. Basically, we have a great topic today. Aaron Rodgers, Kyrie Irving, just champions of science, champions of medicine, champions of health. But we'll get into that. Right now, we have some breaking news, a lot of breaking news, actually. Um, so, as you can see, Portland Trailblazers president Chris McGowan steps down after 9 years. So this is following the first few episodes that I did, which was on the Trailblazers and Lillard. And actually, the second part of that episode, I broke the news that Neil Olshley, the GM for the Blazers, was getting investigated by the Blazers for toxic and bullying workplace behavior. And so, not a great start to the season for the Trailblazers, if I'm being honest. Yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered the situation pretty well in your first couple episodes as to the issues in that front office and decision making. It's interesting to see whose head rolled. I mean, I think started to become clear that somebody was going to have to take the rap for this. Turns out it wasn't Neil after all. So I mean, that's sort of interesting.
Yeah, I just think it's definitely telling about like they're aware of the situation that they've put themselves in, and it's uh, that's akin to admitting fault in some regard. Like the organization knows that they needed to do something, and yeah, I like Matt said, I think it is interesting who took the fall necessarily, but I mean it's clear that that organization had to do something, and by doing something made it clear that those accusations and stuff, they were aware that those had some truth to them, and it certainly just wasn't a lot of media attention stuff. That was really a cultural problem that existed in this organization.
Yeah, and the Blazers are doing a little bit better. In the previous episodes they were way under 500, but they're 6-7 now. They're doing a little bit better, but yeah, like you guys said,
Covington's been stepping up more.
Really,
which
yeah.
They're going to need. I mean, I think we've seen year after year that if this is the Dame McCollum show, you're a first round exit. I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen that story too many times. So they really need the Norman Powells, the Robert Covingtons. They need those guys to step up if they're going to be any different from what they've always been.
Yeah. No, that's so right. I mean, they are, like I've said in the past, just like their specialty is first round exits. And it's good to see because actually the investigation was done by the Blazers. So part of it is, the owner might be trying to purge the front office of this whatever negative behavior, negative, energy, and hopefully get in some personnel that will honestly make some trades for Lillard, like you guys said. They need more than just CJ and Lillard. They need a
Yeah,
good team.
like you had brought
Yeah.
up in those earlier episodes, like it really seemed like the organization failed Damian Lillard in a lot of ways. I mean, like you have this guy who's like just overflowing with talent, and this organization has failed to give him the pieces he needs to take the team farther than they've gone. And hopefully that this, I mean, it's awful that this was going on within the organization, obviously, but hopefully, if this gets addressed in some regard, maybe that also addresses the some of those other failings that the organization had, and maybe if they slot in some personnel that can instill a more positive culture, those personnel will also make better moves to support the pieces that they have.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that strikingly has made no bold moves since ever.
Since ever. You hear that, everyone?
Since ever.
Since ever.
Yeah.
No, and that
Forever.
No, that is just no that is their, like, everyone else in the league, that's how they look at the front office for the Blazers. Is they're so safe. And it's like, what do you have to lose, man? Like, what are they so worried about? If the Nets can trade all of their draft capital for an aging Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and bounce back to now be what they are, I think the Blazers will be fine if they make a make a trade that's not the most secure thing in the world. So that's coming out. Latest news on the Trailblazers. We briefly mentioned it on the last episode that we aired, but Jokic and Markieff Morris, man, this was quite the trade of blows.
They're beefing.
Yeah, let's watch this here. This was against the Heat versus Denver. You can see the score. Like, Denver's killing them. Sorry, Matt.
Yeah, no. Shout out the clock too. Like, it's important to understand context here.
Yeah. You can see 2:45 left. Let's watch this. So Jokic, great defense, honestly, and then boom.
Yeah.
And then boom. Oh, God.
Yeah.
So the degrees of hits, definitely. One was a little stronger than the other. But,
and Markieff Morris did not play the next game. I mean, he seemed to be legitimately injured.
I mean, I can see him right now. He does not look good.
I mean, but so Jokic's hit back was certainly a lot harder, but the hit that Morris laid on him, like you guys brought up, the context of the game was wildly unnecessary, and he put himself in a situation. He angered the beast a bit, and he took a hit for it.
Yeah, and
it's a stupid game, stupid prizes sort of scenario here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a frustration penalty. Heat have no chance of coming back in this game. You go out there, you hit a star player on the other team, and then you turn around and dare them to come back and hit you. And then when they do, now everybody looks like an idiot.
Yeah, I honestly, if I was Mike Malone, coach for the Nuggets, I would secretly be like, Jokic, dude, good for you. Because this is something that Shaq always talked about. He was always so much bigger than everyone else on the court, and people would just hang on him. They would just hang on him like they were just hanging on a tree, and he wouldn't get these calls. He would have to get, like, overtly, like, hit to get a call. And I think Jokic is experiencing some of this frustration, as you can tell by his face. And I think this is good. I think this is good for him to be like, yo, like, I ain't taking no more shit. Like, if you're going to hit me, like, be ready to square up or, get whiplash, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing for Jokic. For the league, I
agree with you. It's a bad look for the league, I think. But yeah, hard to blame Jokic that much. More, Markieff came out and said, I've never hit a guy with my back turned. Well, then don't hit a guy and turn around.
Dude, straight up.
Yeah, no,
hard position to defend.
I think it's certainly easy from watching on the couch to say, Jokic, don't let your emotions get to you in that situation. You won the game. The guy's bumping into you because he's frustrated. Let him be frustrated and just be the bigger person and not retaliate. But I think that we don't get to experience the emotions that are going through these
I don't
players
know. When
as they
I'm on
play
my
through a game.
couch, dude, sometimes,
A lot of highs, a lot of lows.
there's like a pillow next to me, and I'm just like, "Fuck you, pillow."
But I think
Fuck that
where
pillow.
I really sympathize with Jokic is that, like, he's a big dude. You hit him right and he goes down, and like that's his livelihood and his career.
Yeah,
So if it's a tough play that you're playing good defense, it's a contentious game, and someone gets fouled hard and potentially hurt, like that's an entirely different situation because that's like embedded in the intensity of that game at that time. But if you have just like the game's over and you're potentially hurting someone, that's where I see a lot of that emotional retaliation in Jokic. And it's like I said, it's easy to say, hey, be the bigger person and don't retaliate, but that's where I sympathize with his reaction for sure.
Yeah, I will say the flip side on a somewhat different facet of this is I was interested, and I think it's a good sign for the Heat of how the rest of the team reacted to that, which was sort of regardless of who was in the right here, the entire team really rallied behind Markieff Morris.
Mm-hmm.
And they really did. And I think that in a lot of teams, you can get a peek into what that locker room dynamic is like by what happens immediately after these sort of scenarios. And there's no doubt that this Heat team considers each and every one of each other to be integral parts of this. They're all going to bat for each other. Markieff Morris is the third guy off the bench, and you got your star players out there ready to go toe to toe with any players in the other team.
Locker room.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing is it extended off the court as well. Marcus Morris, brother of Markieff Morris, and the Jokic brothers were exchanging tweets, I think it was. And the Jokic brothers got courtside seats or something to the next
game,
Denver game.
The next, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see, like I said on the last episode, I'd love to see like a WWE, introduction to be like, they face off.
The story behind Jokic getting discovered in the beginning, who knows how these things, if they're true or not. The story goes that an NBA scout affiliate, something like that, reads an article about a Serbian police officer, a 7 feet tall Serbian police officer who fought off 10 men on his own. Reaches out to that guy, asks him if he has any sons. He says,
What?
yes, I do. Jokic is that guy. So if you...
All right, we need
it's
someone.
worth looking up.
No, we need some
It's worth
fact checking
looking up.
on this.
If you should look it up, and you should also look up pictures of Jokic's dad.
Okay.
Because I got a feeling everybody in the Jokic family is not someone to be trifled with on the court, in an alley, in a restaurant,
No,
anywhere.
Eastern European 7 foot men, let's be real. No, we should look that up for the next episode. We'll for all the audience
We'll
out
get
there,
back to you on that one.
we'll get back to you and see if that is
wild
true,
story.
because that'd be fucking nuts. So here's the other. I do have to say, this start to this NBA season, there's been a good amount of scuffles and fights. Here's another one: Rudy Gobert, Miles Turner, battle of the trees. I'm liking the intensity to the start of this regular season. Let's see this. So something happens here. Rudy Gobert pulls down Miles Turner. They're fucking playing basketball and realizing wait, there's some fucking skyscrapers fighting each other in the background.
Watch out for those buildings.
Yeah, it's like King Kong and Godzilla Part 2.
You're right about the tensions. I mean, it looked initially like a decent bit of just incidental contact
I thought so, yeah.
They're tripping over each other. Maybe Gobert reaches up and grabs him, and
then Donovan Mitchell gets into it. Donovan Mitchell's getting fired up, and 4 people got ejected from this and fined. So
hey, with 10-point game with 4 minutes left, that's a game still, certainly.
Yeah, no,
and losing a bunch of people to tussle.
I think
That's frustrating as coach.
The Pacers won this game, and Pacer. I mean, the Jazz are rolling, so they definitely should have won this game. Yeah, it looks like Miles Turner.
Yeah,
and then they
I do. Oh,
I
wow.
like, instead of like trying to punch each other, like Rudy Gobert just goes in for like the bear hug, and he's just like, "Get over here, you man," and he's, "Let me hug you." That's my French
So
accent.
I got to apologize here. This is Nurkic's story, not Jokic's. I got the wrong kick here. So Nurkic's father is a policeman in Bosnia, and
shit.
it was reported that a 7-foot, 400-pound police officer fought off 14 people and beat them all in a fight. And so a Slovenian scout reached out to him, met him, asked him if he had a son.
Wow.
He said yes. Yusuf Nurkic was 14 years old at the time. He flew him to Slovenia and trained him in basketball. I'd never played the sport before.
Holy shit.
Man, there's a couple of teams in the NBA that might want to try to sign Nurkic's dad. My goodness, 14 people? I mean, granted, I'm sure they weren't NBA player-sized people, but
how do we know
still.
it's not Boban?
right.
On the map.
John Wick?
Hey, Cole, pull us up a picture of Nurkic's father. We got a good picture of him in the stands at a Blazers game.
Nurkic?
Nurkic.
Nurkic father.
Dad. Ariz.
Wow.
There he is. Look at him sitting down in one of those pictures with the suits. That's a big boy.
That is a big boy. That's
a big boy.
That's
right there.
Yeah. No, that's a scary dude. You don't.
Scary person.
Yeah, you don't fuck with that dude at all.
I'm happy he's a cop.
Yeah. True. He could very much be working.
PSA: Don't break the law in Bosnia.
Yeah.
That's a PSA for all of you guys at home right now.
Yeah, for everyone taking, for all the Americans taking a trip in Bosnia, for their, vacation, do not break the law there.
Break the law. Way to fact check on the fly there, Wiener.
No, that was great. We do need someone who just, we'd be like, can we, like who Joe Rogan has that kid in the background. He's like, can we get that fact check?
And we're practically Joe Rogan at this point.
Oh God, please. Yeah. We'll talk about Joe Rogan, and
it'll come up
in the later topic.
the source of the truth when it comes to medical treatment.
Who knew? Yeah, heartworm pills or whatever. It's the cure for cancer.
Dewormer.
Yeah. So before we get to that, a few more breaking news here. We have the LA Rams, Robert Woods, and this is tough for me and Jeremy because I have Robert Woods on my fantasy team. He's out, torn ACL, but there are rumors going around that OBJ is touchdown in LA and he will be ready to go this weekend. So yeah, we'll get to see it in action.
I mean, as far as the Rams are concerned, that if Robert Woods was going to go down, this is like they got real lucky. I mean, having just put OBJ on the roster, they really. I mean, the Rams got lucky. Van Jefferson also got lucky because his role in the team now doesn't shift too much relative to before.
True,
but they happen to put themselves in a situation to be somewhat okay, given that they lost their number 2 wide receiver to a torn ACL.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it's just based on how Cooper Kupp has been playing this season, and he's been playing like the best receiver in football.
It's crazy.
I think it's clear OBJ comes in as a second option. I wonder if there's truly any path for OBJ to become a number 1 wide receiver on this team.
Oh, I don't even know on any team. I mean, maybe there is a team out there, but I mean, that's the talk. His years as a number 1 option might be over. Unless he makes an incredible comeback.
It's tough to say because, like I feel like he's been not himself because of his disgruntlement with Baker Mayfield and the Browns or whatever. But that's not to say he didn't have chances while he was there. and he was still not putting up the numbers that you would expect him to put up.
Yeah, did you guys see the video that OBJ's dad posted? For the audience out there,
Yeah.
OBJ's dad, while all the controversy of OBJ possibly getting traded by the Browns, OBJ's dad released a compilation video, like as if it was like us putting a video together on YouTube of all the times either OBJ was open and didn't get a pass, or when OBJ got a pass from Baker and it was just a bad pass. Yeah, what do you guys think about that? Do you think that was right? Like, do you think the video was correct, or was it just like a snippet of a bias, clips?
I think it's a little of both. Like,
Yeah.
we all know Baker Mayfield isn't, top tier quarterback, but he's also not bottom tier. And I think that even for like a lot of like elite quarterbacks, you could put together a compilation of their receivers being open and not getting the ball, or misthrown passes. Like, you snip the right clips together, you can make Tom Brady look bad.
True.
So I think that it's easy to hyperbolize those mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's Baker Mayfield. He's relatively sloppy for the I think the caliber of player that he falls into.
Yeah, I don't think. I think it was a great move for OBJ. I really do. I mean, it's come out now that he's been behind the scenes professionally asking for a trade for a while now. He clearly does not fit with Baker Mayfield. Whether that's Mayfield's fault or Beckham's fault almost doesn't matter. This is not the right place for him. This is not the right receiver for you.
Yeah.
Get him out. And the fact that it took so long that Odell feels like he has to resort to something that has never been a signature of his career. He's never been that guy.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the Browns' front office fault. This is not the right guy for you. Go out, make a move, put him somewhere else where you can recoup value. My guess is that they've been trying to trade him this whole time. Zero suitors, zero people willing to return value for that contract. And so they've just been holding him. And so he has to come out and do what is without a doubt an unprofessional move to get moved because he feels like it's his last option.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say, a lot of sportscasters, analysts say, like, this is his last leg. Like, if he does not perform on the Rams, like, he will get pushed out of the league. And we've seen that happen with other players where, they haven't quite been able to, they started out well, they haven't been able to revive their career. They went to a shitty team. And I hope it's not that, because everyone can remember that crazy catch that he made, one-handed catch, and it's I think the league would be better with him performing at his level, especially because he is like social media tyrant. Everyone loves him. Everyone like digs his like pre-shows, like before the games, where he's making these crazy catches like in practice.
It's almost hard to remember that there was a time when he was as much a face of the league as anybody. He truly was one of the most recognizable faces in all of football, and that must-watch player. And it's just been so long since he's been somebody that defensive coordinators even worry about.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
I have a hard time imagining he ever gets back to that point. It'll be interesting to see if he's the kind of player who can come in and be a second option. We're looking at Julio Jones right now, who is a historically great receiver. There's a guy whose peak is certainly above OBJ's was.
Yeah.
And he is being a number 2 wide receiver in a run-first offense right now. But he's the kind of guy...
The Titans are doing well.
Yeah, he's the kind of guy who can do that. Antonio Brown was not the kind of guy who can do that. He is now. It took a bit of a meltdown for him to come around.
AB's getting a lot of passes still, though, man.
I feel like Antonio Brown's really found his value in a number 3 option,
Really? You think
behind
so?
Godwin and Evans. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think sometimes
absolutely.
Brady, though, in the back of his mind is like, I could throw to these, like, up and still kind of up and comers, or I could throw to fucking Antonio Brown. And
Well, I think Brady and him obviously have a connection, and so
yeah,
that adds to his threat. But I think defenses are more afraid of Mike
true,
Evans and Chris Godwin,
true.
and so
Yeah.
they're getting more attention, and that's leaving openings for Antonio Brown.
Yeah. And I mean, that just goes back to like having multiple threats in the wide receiver position. Like the Chargers, you'll see Keenan Allen will get like 5 touches, and you see, someone like, their tight end gets like 15. It's just because, like, obviously they're going to double Keenan Allen on
Right.
the outside. And so I'm hoping that's a situation with the Rams. I hope, though, OBJ has his expectations in a way that is realistic, where you might just be maybe pulling some of the defense, and that just might be your role for Cooper Kupp, or you might be just kind of screening on slant routes and for Cooper Kupp. And I just hope that OBJ is okay with that. Like, that's a good role, you'll get some catches, but yeah, I especially on the Rams, dude. They have so many offensive weapons in the pass game that
I really like him on the Rams. Like I think that, if I'm him choosing where to go, that's like one of the better places to land. I think it was better in some regard with Robert Woods there, in that if you have those 3 as your wide receiver options, you're making, I mean, the defenses are obviously paying a lot of attention to Cooper Kupp, and then they have to split their attention between Robert Woods and OBJ. Now, even without Robert Woods, like, yeah, that makes it a little bit easier, I think, on the defense, in that OBJ is, I think, clearly going to be the number 2 option. But I still think that that's like much better for OBJ in not being the guy who's getting all of the defensive attention as he was on the Browns in a large way.
totally.
Yeah, and hey,
Not Matt Stafford.
he gets to go from Cleveland to LA.
Dude.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
That
that
doesn't
was
hurt
that
either.
was part of it, because it was what I was hearing, it was either the Packers also or LA, and it's like Green Bay isn't known for its amazing weather in the winter. I think this is exactly where he wants to go.
Yeah, the
and-
chatter was that Justin Jefferson, his fellow LSU friend, also Vikings star, reached
Oh.
out to OBJ, all but begging him not to go to the division rival Packers.
That makes a lot of
So-
sense. I mean,
You wonder how much that plays in.
you also
OBJ
never know
did
what.
get quite in trouble for handing Justin Jefferson cash after they won the championship. I don't know if you guys remember that
I
one.
do not remember that. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, OBJ got banned from campus because after the LSU championship, he was in the locker room handing out wads of cash to all the players.
Could see that being problematic.
He also spanked the police officer in that same day, which
Yeah, I remember that one.
they don't generally appreciate.
I could I could also see that. I could also see that. Well, I mean, OBJ, he has Matt Stafford. As you can see here, ranked number 3 in the NFL in scoring. So he's got a good quarterback. There's no excuses, for OBJ not getting touches, not getting passes. But let's switch over to another piece of breaking news regarding a quarterback. Is Cam Newton is a Carolina Panther again.
Superman returns.
Yeah, what the fuck? I mean, that's my reaction is what the fuck?
It's a soap opera story, man. I mean, like, it's hilarious to me that, the Panthers paid a lot of money to replace Cam Newton, and then they gave up a lot to replace Cam Newton's replacement, and now here we are replacing that person with Cam Newton.
Yeah. So here's for everyone out there.
Not a good situation.
Here's what here's the exact what happened. So Panthers were paying Teddy Bridgewater. It looks like $10 million. Then they traded him to the Broncos, and then that didn't work out. They got Sam Darnold for 3 draft picks, and then now Sam Darnold, I don't even know what they're saying he's hurt, but I don't know what he's hurt from. But they're just like, yeah, all right. We did that for 2 years. Let's just go back to
Let's start over again.
Let's just go back to when it was a simpler time, the world was young, the dinosaurs ruled the world. But yeah, they're just like, yeah, let's just forget about the past few years. Cam Newton, here's your job back.
So Darnold has a partial non-displaced fracture of his right scapula, expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks.
All right, you're a science guy. What the fuck does that mean?
And for those who don't know, a scapula
shoulder blade.
is...
Okay.
Shoulder blade.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, I think that's his throwing arm as well.
Well, then I guess that's okay. I'll let that slide.
Yeah, he's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks.
But let's be real. Even when he comes back, are they putting in Sam Darnold in front of Cam Newton?
Well, I think it really depends on how Cam Newton takes it, does with this time that he has.
True.
I mean, he's been awarded in some regard like a second chance to really show that he is Cam Newton. I mean, this is a former MVP, and if he comes out and really has some Showtime talent and looks at all reminiscent of the old Cam Newton, I think that conversation gets really interesting. But if he doesn't perform, if he performs akin to what he was doing in New England, then I think Sam Darnold, at least it's an interesting conversation. It's not so cut and dry, and the Panthers will have to make a decision.
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season, I would have told you easily 0 chance he's more than a stopgap. But with how well the Panthers started off, they really committed to being a good team now. They went out and paid Stephon Gilmore, to come in and be a stud corner on this defense, and really made some moves that show that they want to be irrelevant now. So to me, if I think you're right. If Newton comes in and he is that guy, they won't go back to Darnold. I think the likelihood of that happening is near 0. I think we haven't seen Cam Newton be a, really value add starting caliber quarterback in this league for many years now. And I think it's hard to imagine it starts now.
I do wonder, though, was it the rigid system in New England? Because let's all be real, Belichick, that guy's butthole is tighter than anyone else's. He is not letting anything...
That's why he wears pants so high.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing out, nothing in.
Yeah, he is to the T. He is to the T, and that helps with a quarterback like Mac Jones. Young, can throw those out route passes for 10 yards, 15 yards. But a quarterback who can run outside of the pocket. I think that part of my feeling is that maybe that just wasn't the system for Cam Newton. Because I don't think the Patriots have never had a quarterback like Cam Newton that can run. I mean, not necessarily that's his thing, not like Lamar Jackson, but he can move outside the pocket. He can extend a play.
The Patriots definitely like a pocket passer.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, that's the McDaniels offense, no doubt about it. But I truly believe that they were planning to move forward with Cam Newton as their quarterback this year. I think that's one of the reasons that they went out and targeted tight end so hard in the offseason. Cam Newton has always loved a check down pass. Yeah. He loved throwing to Greg Olsen all the time. So the Patriots go out, they get Hunter Henry, they get Jonnu Smith. And I think those moves were to prepare for a better season of a Cam Newton offense. It turned out Mac Jones is just a better player. But it's hard to imagine that Matt Rule and the Carolina, who's a new coach in this league, he's only had a year or two under his belt in that job, is looking at Cam Newton, who probably has a few years left. I mean, it's a question mark, and seeing, that's the guy I want to tie my wagon to on my career here. I have a hard time imagining that. I mean, they have a young team? Is that really the guy you want to come in and say this is who we're going with for the next 3 years?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I hope Cam Newton is coming with some fire in his belly though, and
He has to. I mean,
losing his job to like such a young kid, and like there's a lot of talk about how he's washed up, he's done out of football. If he comes back fired up and can be Cam Newton that we all remember, that would be fun just for the NFL. Like that would be fun drama that I would love to see.
I am.
Yeah, if I'm a Panthers fan, be prepared to see a lot of passes in the dirt. Be prepared to see your quarterback have more rushing touchdowns than passing touchdowns. Be prepared to see Christian McCaffrey continue to get a lot of 4-yard passes, 5-yard
totally,
passes.
Totally.
I think your young tight end Tommy Tremble, who I think is a really promising young player. He's a rookie this season. I think you're going to see him be more involved in this passing offense. I would not expect to see Robbie Anderson thrive, who's he's a deep threat first and foremost, not Cam Newton's strong suit in a number of years.
So that's funny
I'd be fading Robbie Anderson hard right now.
Yeah, no, and that's super fun. That's super interesting you bring that up. There's actually on one of the talk shows on Friday when this news broke, one of the sportscasters were like, because there has been issues with Cam Newton's, I think, shoulder or something, an injury to his throwing arm, basically. And so people were wondering, like, does he still have that ability to throw those deep passes? And one of the sportscasters were like, if I were the Panthers, I'd go out first play for Cam Newton, have him throw a deep ball. It's either way, it's a win-win for the Panthers. If he does the pass and it looks good, he's back. If he doesn't, then you're like, well, okay, we know where Cam Newton's at. Like, he is, like you said, just going to throw those 5-yard passes at Christian McCaffrey, And so I wonder.
Yeah, which doesn't appear to be the offense that Matt Rule would like to run there.
Yeah.
It seems like a scenario where their backup quarterback is, PJ Walker. He's this guy they signed right out of the XFL. He's, played one game. He's an athletic guy, but he's not somebody that you can plug in for the next 7 weeks. So you go out, you get a guy who is, it's one of those situations. Cam Newton is everything you could possibly ask for in a quarterback except for his throwing ability, which happens to be somewhat important.
But
he's a great locker room leader. He motivates people. They love following him. He demands respect on the field. He can move. He knows how to read a defense. He just can't throw a ball well.
You got to throw the ball.
You know what I do think is interesting, though, is that I think a lot of the success that Sam Darnold saw earlier in the year was created by him running. He led quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns through the first couple weeks, I think.
Really?
And,
interesting.
It's interesting because he's not like a running guy.
No, not at all.
And so if that's some of the success that they were seeing at least earlier in the season, it'd be interesting to put someone who does have more running ability into that spot as well. I mean, if you are worried about Christian McCaffrey being like the best running back out there if he's healthy, and now the quarterback brings in like a substantial running threat as well, or at least one that you have to respect, that does add some interesting versatility to their offense.
Yeah, you can run a Ravens-style offense, right, where practically every single play is a run-pass option for the quarterback, and they look out, they go to hand it to, in this case, McCaffrey, or they take it themselves. And I think you're going to see a ton of that. I'd say losers here are anybody playing fantasy football who owns anybody on the Panthers. McCaffrey's going to lose touchdowns to Cam Newton rushing. Robbie Anderson's not going to get the accuracy or volume deep. DJ Moore, I don't know, maybe he gets more 7-yard passes that he can turn into 12-yard plays. But this is not good news from a fantasy football
And here's the
perspective.
thing is you got to respect us fantasy players if you're a real player. You have a duty. Baker Mayfield, you hear me? You have a duty to make points for us.
They don't consider us.
Yeah.
Really. It's disrespectful.
We're the unheard masses out there that they just don't give a shit about. Okay?
Yeah.
Come on.
We're the ones telling police officers, I pay your I'm a taxpayer. I pay your salary. That's us right now.
Yeah, and everyone knows how much cops love that. I'm sure they appreciate that.
Players love this too.
Yeah. Yep. Cam Newton, I am paying your $10 million salary, so do me well. So yeah, there's that, but there's also more news. We got a lot of news. Russell Wilson, he hurt his little bitty finger.
Did you see that thing?
No, it was gross. So we went to it was me and Alex Burns and a few other of his friends who live in Seattle, so they're big Seahawks fans, and of course I'm a Rams fan. And so we went to like some pub and everyone was going crazy. And yeah, they showed it on the big screen. His finger, dude, was like to the fucking side. I mean, I joke, but that thing looks fucking gross, dude.
It was really
I think it's gross.
And
his finger looked like a geometry problem.
Yeah.
And that finger happens to be very important for his job of throwing the ball.
Yeah, does this Seahawks team have, I mean, does this really matter? Does this Seahawks team have any shot of making a run here with or without Russell Wilson?
No. Sorry. Let me open my window real quick and yell out to all the Seattle natives. Your team isn't good even with Russell Wilson. Like, I'm sorry to say. Yeah. But when they had Russell Wilson, they were losing. They were they were underperforming very, very hard. So
no, free Russell Wilson.
I agree.
Yeah.
I could get on that. I was the one who created the free Dame movement, so I know a lot about these movements. I could back that for sure. He is legit the only reason they're a respectable football team. And that's just so sad because you just like we talked about Tom Brady last episode. He is the GOAT. But he has such a good team around him every time he's won the championship. His defense is so good. Obviously, the knock has been wide receivers, but still, it's just like maybe like trade DK Metcalf for like a decent defense or offensive line. Like I don't think the knock on the Seahawks is like they can't pass the ball very well. They can't stop anyone. I don't know. What do you guys think about the Seahawks?
I 100% agree with you. I think anytime a team has a star quarterback and fails to protect them with a decent offensive line, it's just egregious. And we've never seen those teams succeed. Unless you look at like Belichick has made do, but that's because every play he has is 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
So, is that the team you want to be? Probably not. The reason that they love Russell Wilson is that he extends plays.
Yeah.
Get this guy a fucking offensive line.
Dude.
Pete Carroll has historically been able to piece together decent defenses out of young players.
True.
So I think they've been relying on him to do that. He has not done it in a few years. So maybe that philosophy is not so successful after all. But their absolute decision to not have a good offensive line is mind-blowing.
Yeah, with a talent like Russell Wilson, I mean, it's unquestionable that like within the last decade or whatever, like he is top tier elite quarterback, and it's kind of sad to see him not see the success that he really deserves on a large scale.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I challenge anybody to look up a Super Bowl team with a really bad offensive line. It just almost never happened.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think they're relying on like Russell Wilson can run out of the pocket. So if it collapses, we're fine. But it's like that's not how it works. Like,
it is. I will say that you bring up an excellent point that, frankly, for the fate of the Seahawks, it doesn't matter. Russell Wilson, Geno Smith, whatever. Like they're not doing well. But I will say, as a football fan, the fact that we're potentially going to see Russell Wilson play, and now another breaking news announced that Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing in the game. That's a matchup I'm looking forward to watching, certainly. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely happy about that as a football fan.
Expected to play Sunday against the Seahawks.
Yeah.
That is, and you could argue, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, MVP last season. I mean, there was times throughout last season where you could argue Russell Wilson was on that MVP pace. But that's
Without a
the
doubt.
thing is he can only survive so many games with a pocket that is constantly collapsing. Like, I just imagine that weighs on him, and that's why you see at the beginning of the season, Russell Wilson does really well, and in the middle of the season, his numbers tank, and then end of the season. So you can just see this, like, he's really trying, and then it's just like he can only try so hard, and you probably just loses that energy of like
Take some hits too.
taking hits.
And the Packers have often been criticized for not giving Aaron Rodgers enough weapons, which is a fair criticism. But one thing they have done is they've pretty much always given him a good offensive line.
Yeah.
And that has kept this offense going consistently.
No, you have a good offensive line, and yeah, you have one really, really good wide receiver, and you're set, dog. I mean, everyone expects the Packers to make a deep playoff push.
Yeah.
So, but that is a good segue, perfect segue into our main topic, which is what the fuck, Aaron Rodgers? Like, I'm sorry. Is the vaccination thing. I'm sure all of you out there have heard about this nonstop, and you're probably like, God damn it, there's another talk show that's going to talk about this. But yeah, we're going to talk about this because this is actually like so fucking ridiculous. And it's been tough because I'll be writing our notes in our Google Doc about the show and about topics, and I'll see something else pop up, and I'll be smashing my keyboard because I'm like, fucking Aaron Rodgers, what the fuck? And it blows my mind. It blows my mind. I think we're all here in agreement that the vaccine is very, very important, and it works, and it's not giving kids autism. It's not doing all this other bullshit that anti-vaxxers are saying. So we're going to go with the facts on this show. If you don't want facts, you can go to Joe Rogan's podcast. It's out there somewhere.
Aaron Rodgers did.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers did. But so, for the person living under a rock, let's just kind of go over this whole scenario. And we're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers, and then we're going to talk about Kyrie Irving, because Kyrie Irving had a similar situation where he didn't want to take the vaccination, and he hasn't played yet. But he was more upfront about it. And so here's the difference with Aaron Rodgers is basically he lied. I would say he lied. He lied. He said the words. He said he was immunized. So a reporter, let's see if I can find a sound bite, because I think that would really help. Let me see if I can find like Aaron Rodgers soundbite, because I just want to hear, because everyone's kind of interprets the soundbite differently. Of him at the beginning of the season, right? It was at the beginning of the season. Being asked by a reporter, because reporters are asking all of the big players, are you vaccinated? If not, why? And Kirk Cousins, Lamar Jackson are not did get their vaccinations. And, people are criticizing them, but they're not killing them, because at the end of the day, we live in a free country. We're not forcing injections. And that's their thing. But Aaron,
the protocols that are put in place, like in order to actively enforce those in a reasonable, in accordance with what they are, you have to know the vaccination status of these players. Like unvaccinated players need to be treated differently than vaccinated players if we are going to go in accordance with CDC guidelines. So, even though Aaron Rodgers seems to feel that as vilification, and that makes me feel like all of these protocols are just out to make people feel bad for not being vaccinated, it's to the contrary. If you're unvaccinated, you harbor different risks than people who are vaccinated, and the CDC has made it clear that we need to take those seriously. And so the protocols that the league has agreed upon and put into place require you to disclose whether or not you're vaccinated or not so that you can follow the appropriate protocol. And he straight up lied. I mean, he used a different word, but immunization is only achieved through a few different approved vaccines. And so if you're saying that, it implies that you've been vaccinated. And he hasn't. That's a flat out lie.
And so here, let's play the soundbite for everyone. I think this is it. Let's see.
Rodgers said back in August.
Are you vaccinated?
Yeah, I've been immunized. You know, there's guys on the team that haven't been vaccinated. I think it's a personal decision. I'm not going to judge those guys.
It sure sounds like he's saying he got the COVID vaccine, but reports say he didn't.
How brazen and how reckless is that? To look into cameras and to basically conjure up this lie.
It said he's been taking a homeopathic treatment prescribed by his doctor that he believes immunizes him from COVID. Look around any health food store and you'll find numerous natural remedies that claim to boost your immune system to help you fight colds and flus. But could they offer the same immunity as a vaccine? We asked virologist Dr. William Schaffner to weigh in.
I know of no data, rigorous scientific data, that a homeopathic treatment would prevent or in some way ameliorate COVID infection.
It's
All right,
believed.
that's not William Shatner. I think we should start there.
Yeah, for everyone out there, William Shatner is on a rocket ship going to Mars, courtesy of Jeff Bezos, I think. So
He is.
Can we
believe
get
so.
our little boy assistant to fact check that?
And I will say, I think that news clip gives Aaron Rodgers far more credit than is deserved, because it implies that homeopathy has a place to treat anything.
Yeah,
And it doesn't. I'm sorry. It just doesn't.
yeah.
And it's such a stark contrast between what Aaron Rodgers puts forth in what he's come out and said more recently is that, oh, I'm a critical thinker. I've weighed the risks and benefits of these different treatments, and I've decided, I've come to the conclusion that those things are not safe, and so I've gone with this alternative remedy. But I would love so much for a reporter to ask him, hey, do you know what homeopathy is? I would love that, because for those of you listening who don't know what homeopathy is, it's a medicinal practice that Aaron Rodgers has said has been around for centuries, which is true, but it's been doing nothing for centuries.
Yeah.
If you actually know the tenets of homeopathy, it essentially says that it's largely driven by two things. One is that your body has everything that it needs to cure itself of anything already. And the other thing is that you basically have to give it like just a nudge in the right direction. And the way that you do that is you take an active ingredient that you would use and you dilute the shit out of it in water. So much so that the thing that you end up taking at the end might not even contain that active ingredient in the end. And so while homeopathy has persisted, and in some places, a lot of Europe, it's like people use homeopathic remedies all the time. Frankly, in a large sense, it's water. And so if you imagine him changing his statements here and saying, I got this homeopathic treatment that I think immunizes me, he's drinking water. That's what it is. And he's saying, oh, and I think I'm protected from this. And it's just like, the scientific and medical communities recognize homeopathy is entirely a pseudoscience. And if you're using that to try to justify not getting vaccinated and you call yourself a critical thinker, I'm sorry, you're just not.
Yeah, and I think there's no question about whether or not. I mean, so many people come out and say, "Oh, it was a live omission." It wasn't a live omission. They asked him pretty directly, "Are you vaccinated?" And his first word is, "Yeah."
Yes.
Yeah, I've been
Yes.
immunized. Yeah.
He says yes. Everyone just glosses over that, and they're like, "No, but he said he's immunized," and it's like, "No, he says
not.
He
yes.
says, "Yeah." He answers the question yes, very directly.
True, and obviously he's not immunized.
Right, exactly.
He probably wouldn't have gotten the fucking disease. If he was.
I mean,
You know what? I really do believe that is his decision at this point. There's not a mandate in play here, so that is his decision.
True.
To lie is irresponsible, and then for me at least, to come out after all this has come out and people are getting upset, and to act with such indignation, like people's frustration or anger with him is so unreasonable. And he talks about, oh yeah, I guess the woke mob is coming after me.
Oh god. And yeah,
Like,
I want to
no,
play
they're
some of
not.
these sound
That, like-
bites of him on the fucking Pat McAfee show. Such a smug, arrogant demeanor, like as if he knows more than the thousands of doctors, scientists out there who have studied this. And it's like, dude, like you don't. And that's sometimes a quality of an intelligent person is knowing what you don't know, you know? And
Absolutely.
And this ties to Kyrie too. Kyrie had this same smug, arrogant way of being like, no, you guys don't know. It's like, no, Kyrie,
They don't know.
You don't know. I think you don't know.
No, on that show, Aaron Rodgers brings up to Pat McAfee that he's like, I put together like 500 pages worth of research, and Pat McAfee's like, oh my gosh, like as if he's never read 500 pages in his life, and 500 pages could have just been garbage that Aaron Rodgers threw together, and that
It was
somehow
probably Joe
justifies-
Rogan's transcript
Right.
for this podcast.
Yeah, and above and beyond whether or not you are upset by this or you agree with his decision or whatever's going on here, the lack of judgment on his part to cite Joe Rogan as medical counsel and then to decide to paraphrase an MLK quote and not see what the reception of those two moves is going to be is incredible.
And I want to play for everyone. So this is Joy Taylor, and she's been around on Fox Sports. I mean, she's great. She's like really you really don't see a lot of women on these talk shows, or if you do, they're just like kind of hosting them, and they get like a word in before the men like yell at each other. No, but she has her shit together, and she's killing it. And here is her reaction as a person of color to Aaron Rodgers using this MLK quote. Basically, his quote that he used, the quote that he used that was MLK's quote, while MLK was in a jail cell for advocating for, civil liberties, civil rights.
Experiencing real oppression.
Yeah, and I just want to...
MLK said that you have a moral obligation to object to unjust rules and rules that make no sense.
So that's...
In my opinion, it makes no sense for me. I test every single day.
Okay.
Yeah, that was Aaron Rodgers.
The MLK quote, you have a moral obligation, okay? What he just said was unjust rules and rules that make no sense. That is not the quote, Aaron, first of all. If you're going to bother to throw yourself in the gauntlet with MLK, get the quote right. One has not only a legal, but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. All right, so it's important to break this down intellectually, right? So let's start with the fact that you're not breaking any laws. You're not breaking any laws. You're breaking protocols. And just or unjust, you work for an organization, the NFL, that created those protocols with the NFLPA, which you are a part of. So it's not a law. MLK didn't just say, and you can do whatever you want if you feel like it. That's not what the quote is. So I'm really done with the victim thing with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is such a victim, right? You do not have to be vaccinated if you play in any of these leagues. So when they talk about mandates, when people start, mandate, you have to get vaccinated. You don't. There's so many players, not a lot, but there are so many players that are unvaccinated, that are playing in the NFL right now, unvaccinated, living their crunchy granola life. Okay? They're fine. They do the protocols, they play, they don't play, they test positive, they go in the protocol, whatever. But they don't have to be vaccinated. So when you say mandate, you're lying. It's not the truth. It's not reality. I'm sorry to tell you this. You do not have to be vaccinated to play in the NFL. You do not. No one is forcing you. All of these things are a fantasy which you have created in your orb. Let it go. It's not real. You don't have to be vaccinated. However, those players are open and honest about the fact that they're not vaccinated. They follow the protocols. Now, I don't agree with that. I don't respect it. But I do respect their actions following the fact that they didn't get vaccinated. But what Aaron did was he lied, and then he assimilated into the vaccinated people. So he just disguised himself as a vaccinated person, followed the protocols that he felt like he could follow because he was immunized, not vaccinated, immunized, which are two different things because one is vaccinated and one is not vaccinated. So he took advantage of the quote unquote woke scene, but he wasn't actually a part of it. And now he wants to crucify it. Make that one make sense. But let's, of course, go back to the MLK quote, because this is what really started this whole rant for me. Just as a rule, don't quote Martin Luther King Jr., okay, in his letter from Birmingham jail. Don't butcher the quote, first of all, but if you're going to bother to bring it up, don't do it while you're sitting in your mansion doing your weekly interview with your 12 State Farm commercials airing, while your Hollywood actress fiance is in the other room, while you're being paid an average of $33 million a year for one of the most visible franchises in all of sports. It just lacks a little bit of self-awareness. Martin Luther King Jr. was in jail for fighting segregation. He was jailed for fighting for the civil rights of black people in this country that were formerly slaves. And you are sitting on your couch talking about Martin Luther King Jr. Black people couldn't vote, buy property, they couldn't shop. They didn't have that same access to schools, healthcare. They were disenfranchised, lynched, brutalized, murdered for civil rights, for equality. And that is the quote that you're using? You having to quarantine for testing positive for a deadly virus that could potentially be passed on to someone else and kill them or their family is not the same thing as Martin Luther King Jr. being in jail for fighting for civil rights. He was assassinated, by the way, for doing that. So while I'm being condescending, have some perspective and some self-awareness when you talk about these things.
And when I saw this, I was like, dude, she was so spot on. Out of everyone I saw comment on this, the self-awareness piece, he is in his own world. I mean, he's in his own world.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers has gotten the benefit of the doubt a number of times throughout his career. He's always had this sort of self-absorbed ego to him that has been evident more than once. And it's something that we pretty easily forgive in professional athletes, especially ones of his caliber. And I think to a lot of people that were comfortable with giving him that benefit of the doubt, this was, I don't even want to call it the last straw. It was like people are throwing straws on this camel's back, and this guy throws a grand piano. And it's like, oh my God, it fell over. I think she was being generous, frankly.
Well, yeah, I think he puts himself in other positions where you can see that his lack of perspective is, it's just so apparent. I mean, on the talk show he was on, he started out by talking about how much he empathizes with people who are experiencing these tough times. These 2 last years have been really tough. People have lost a lot of people that they love, and I empathize with that. He kept saying that. And then he goes on to talk about how he thinks some of these protocol rules are not based in science. And what he's talking about is oh, why do I have to wear a mask in a presser because I'm unvaccinated when everybody else in the room is wearing a mask and is vaccinated? Like, that's not scientific. As if we're not talking about something that's killed hundreds of thousands of people.
I mean,
like,
what's the death toll now is what? It's like, it's getting
like 5
close.
million, something like that.
Getting close to, it's 750,000 or something, right?
In this country, you mean?
In this country
specifically?
In this country specifically. And obviously the numbers worldwide is millions and millions. But it's like, that is, I know, and it's hard when you're talking about this stuff to not get political, but I said it on the first episode, and I was like, I hate to break it to our audience, but sports is political. It's kind of like, and people pretend like, no, it's just the recent years, the media. No, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Muhammad Ali, all these
Jesse Owens,
all these athletes took pride in making political stances, and that's just where we're at. I think it's time to just accept that,
I think, like, sports fans saying that sports shouldn't be political and it should be just about the game or whatever, that's dehumanizing to these players.
Totally.
That like put their health on the line to give us a good show to play a game that they love. I mean, they're people. They're not just some thing that exists for your entertainment.
Exactly.
This is their job. They go to work, to play this game, and it's akin to standing up to a company or whatever that is putting things in place. But I think that his perspective on this, it's like, yeah, okay, the CDC recommends that you wear a mask when you're within 6 feet of someone. That's not to say that if you're 7 feet away from someone, you can't give them the virus. It's just that the CDC, they can't say everyone wear a mask all the time. They have to draw a line somewhere, and that's where they have. But that's not to say that that's where the virus stops and doesn't work. Like, I think about it akin to, like, if I'm driving on the street and I'm at a red light and there's no cars around, I still don't run the red light. Because, maybe 1 in 1,000 times some car flies around the corner and someone dies. And that can happen with coronavirus. That's why we all have to be so cautious. It's not just, to Joy Taylor's point, it's like, you're sitting in your cushy house and you're with your millions of dollars and you're complaining about wearing like a little piece of fabric on your face when you do your post-game interview or whatever. Like, are you kidding me?
The nerve to be like, this cloth is oppressing me.
And you know what I find frustrating too is you watch the interview on Pat McAfee's shows, and his weekly interviews on this show are usually great fun. He has the quote written down. Like, he looks down to his page to reference the quote. He has it written down. He chooses to add, like, it's almost like he brought it up, said it out loud, realized it doesn't really apply, and so he just, like, adds the last bit at the end. He's like, oh, MLK says we have a moral obligation to not follow just laws or things that don't make sense.
Yeah, and it's like, and he's, it's like, I think you're paraphrasing on that one. I have a feeling. I think MLK. Yeah, I think MLK was a little more put together than that.
I watched that show this morning, and it was just making me angry. And I think part of why is because I think Aaron Rodgers actually does like a really good job of making it kind of sound like he knows what he's talking about and that he's done his reading and whatever. And I think that that's so dangerous because if you're someone who's not informed and you see someone that you look up to and hold in such high regard, and they're telling you things like, oh, I've read the studies, I've put all this stuff together, I'm a critical thinker, this is the conclusion I came to, that enables so much more of our country that is lacking education in these regards to act similarly, and it enables people to not get vaccinated when that is what is in everybody's best interest.
Yeah, and so
go ahead.
Just real quick. So here, to play devil's advocate, I do want to explain a little bit more of the situation between Rodgers, his immunization, so to speak, and the NFL. Because he was in contact with the NFL about his level of immunity, and I don't think they ever agreed on like you were immune, but he was like, I'll probably be fine, and so that's why he broke all these protocols. I have a feeling.
And it's really telling of the organization needed to step in and do more than they did. They should not, if they were at all aware of this, which they were in some regard, they should not have been allowing him to do some of the things that he did, certainly in terms of not wearing a mask and stuff like that. I was really confused. Aaron Rodgers, like, he made such a strange statement to me. He was talking about how when he was being told that vaccinated people and unvaccinated people are going to be treated differently per these protocols, he was like, well, for people who aren't getting vaccinated for legitimate reasons, like, there are legitimate exemptions as to why you might not be vaccinated. He was like, doesn't that exempt them from these protocols? As if being exempt from getting the vaccine all of a sudden means you should be treated like you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make sense at all.
No. And then there's just this facet of this that's like you're a grown-ass man. If you're going to make a decision and own up to it. Like, what is this like pussyfooting around it, right? Oh, yeah, I've been immunized. Like, dude, if you're going to make a decision, make a decision. Then don't come out and say, like, oh, the woke mob. Like, what were you afraid of people's reactions? And that's your big – that's what you're going to –
If he was really a critical thinker and really had the research to back up what he was saying, he should not have any question in his mind about coming forth and saying, this is what I'm doing. I got the research to back it up.
He was scared. No, he was scared. Yeah. He was scared of getting canceled. And if there's one thing that bothers me just so much is if you're going to be an anti-vaxxer, at least stand with your convictions, dog. Like, if you're going to peddle pseudoscience, if you're going to, say all this stuff about not taking the vaccine or believe that in the back of your mind, at least be upfront with it. And that way everyone around you knows this dude is going to spread the virus, so I'm going to stand more than 6 feet away from this motherfucker, and I'm going to always have my mask.
MLK didn't whisper about civil rights. Yeah. He wasn't like, no, I totally agree with segregation. And then he'd, come around back and be like, not.
Yeah.
That wasn't the scenario here.
And
if this is how you're going to paint yourself, then own up to your decisions, be a man who stands in front of what he says, and say what you do what you say. Yeah. But that's not what he did.
Yeah. And that was very frustrating. I think so what the story behind the scenes was Rodgers received homeopathic treatment from a personal doctor to raise his antibody levels. And then asked the NFLPA Players Association to review his status. The Players Union, the NFL, and the NFLPA jointly designated infectious disease consultants, and the league agreed that Rodgers' treatment did not provide any documented protection against the coronavirus. Accordingly, Rodgers did not qualify for an exemption, and he remains subject to a variety of restrictions like the protocol we're talking about. If you're not vaccinated, you need to do all these things like mask up, you stay in different sections of the locker room, all this stuff, daily testing. So that was his whole excuse, I would say. He would probably point to this and be like, well, I tried. You tried and you failed, I think is what happened.
And you need to deal with the consequences of that.
Exactly.
From a different perspective here, because I think we agree that he fucked this up and that he behaved quite irresponsibly. So I ask you from a pure football perspective, how do we look at this Packers team over the rest of the year? How do we look at an offseason in which he was expected to test, the open market a bit? He for a trade. I mean, to look at other teams.
Yeah.
we do know Rodgers, as well as being a bit of a cocky, pretentious guy and one of the best quarterbacks of all time. We know him to be a bit of a petty, vengeful person. I wonder if that translates into a scorching hot second half of the season or a dead cold one. I have a hard time imagining it's business as usual, average Rodgers over the next, 7 or 8 games.
Yeah, I think he comes back like fired up and tries to, because I mean, if there's any chance of him, like you said, he's going to test the market maybe after this season, look to go to another team potentially. He commented about how he thinks it's unfair or unreasonable in some regard for vaccination status to be considered in signing players. And I think that that's such a selfish perspective, in that, like, if he balls out the end of the season, you could say, oh, he's putting himself in a really good position to sign with a different team potentially. But one consideration that team might have is, hey, if we get a new variant of coronavirus and this guy still isn't vaccinated, I'm not just signing a really good quarterback. I'm signing a really good quarterback who could potentially put my players that I already have, along with my staff, in danger and risk us having to miss games because this guy isn't vaccinated. And for him to think that shouldn't be a consideration because it's his choice to get vaccinated or not, I think is so self-absorbed.
Also, hello, Aaron Rodgers. Hello, players who are hurt, teams don't want to pick up. Because why? They can't fucking play the game. It's like, are you stupid? I mean, I'm sorry, but that's so ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. Like, if a player had a torn whatever and was like, my body, my choice, I don't want to get it fixed, the team would be like, okay, go fuck yourself. Like
Michael Thomas this year?
Yeah, it's just like that. The best ability is availability.
That's right. That's true. That being said, I think I probably differ for you guys a little bit on this. I don't think this affects his market demand at all.
No.
I don't think it does even a little bit. I think he's still an MVP caliber quarterback. And, hey, we mentioned the Panthers. I won't be shocked at all if the Panthers
oh my God,
come aggressively after Aaron Rodgers. Broncos. I think those are two teams, potentially Niners even.
More than potentially.
If the Packers,
totally.
if the Packers have interest in, I mean, they don't have the draft capital, so it would have to include Trey, their current young quarterback. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I don't expect this to hurt his chances at all. He's too good. NFL GMs have shown time after time they're willing to look over almost anything to snag a good player.
If there's one thing the NFL is good at, is overlooking a player's shitty, dark past and hiring them anyways. Shout out to Kareem Hunt. Shout out to Adrian Peterson. Shout out to Michael Vick.
Absolutely.
I mean,
that's a great point.
Yeah.
If I may, I would, before we get too much back into the sports, I would like to touch on the reasons why Rodgers has said he doesn't want to get vaccinated. I think we've talked about what he's done after not getting vaccinated.
Hit us with some science, Jeremy. Hit us with science.
I don't believe in science.
I'm I like sports ball, right? Like all things sports ball, maybe some rumble tumble, strong guys too.
Red Rover.
So we know I'm a cool guy, but I'm also a big old nerd. And coronavirus is my line of work. So I know a bunch about the science when it comes to coronavirus. Specifically, I work for a company called Clip Health, and I do assay development, which means I can take a little tiny piece of paper and make it so that little piece of paper can tell you if you have COVID or not. And so I'm very well versed in the body of literature.
Like a fortune cookie.
Yes, exactly. A COVID rapid test is a lot like a fortune cookie. So, like the statements he made regarding the safety of these government-approved vaccines, I think is wildly misleading. He brought up that he's allergic to an ingredient in the mRNA vaccines, which is the Pfizer and Moderna
True,
vaccine.
I forgot to bring that up. Yeah.
There are legitimate allergies to these vaccines, and so that's a fair thing to say. That's his own accord. I will say the most common allergy is for these those vaccine types is for polyethylene glycol or polysorbate, which are and those are legitimate allergies that would prevent you from getting those vaccines. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine doesn't have those components in it, and so if that's the allergy he's talking about, Johnson & Johnson vaccine is a perfect candidate for what he would be eligible for. There are other allergies that could prevent you from getting any vaccine, let's say, but I would also like to point out that the risks associated with those are fairly low. I mean, anaphylaxis is like a full body allergic response to something. And that has happened in a super small percentage of people who have received these vaccines, but none of them have needed to be stabilized. None of them have died. It's all been like, some of them have been, not necessarily minor, but not severe, and especially not severe relative to what getting coronavirus has looked like for a lot of people. So then he said he didn't want to get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because of the risk of a rare blood clot that was it, and he brought up that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was paused for a brief period of time because they were worried that this was a heightened risk.
Yeah.
But they resumed it because they did they studied it, which is what they do, and determined that it wasn't actually a big risk. And not only was it not a big risk of this vaccine type, the risk of getting that type of blood clot from coronavirus is higher than getting it from the vaccine.
Yeah.
Similarly, he said he didn't want to get vaccinated because of his fears of infertility. There is literally no data anywhere that suggests that these vaccines would have anything to do with fertility. There was one German scientist who brought up that protein structure of the coronavirus spike protein in some way maybe resembled some kind of placental protein that women might have. And it's been just entirely debunked. It's not a thing. And so all of these concerns that he's brought up are just ways of justifying his fear of taking a vaccine. And that's not to say we shouldn't be apprehensive about putting pharmaceuticals into our body. But these things have been versed. These things have been studied. And now the sample sizes of the amount of people that have gotten these things, unless you're a practicing MD, not a homeopathic doctor, but your true doctor tells you you can't get any of these because it's really going to hurt your body, everybody should be getting vaccinated.
Yeah. No, and that's a great point. I mean, I like to play devil's advocate, and for the other side of this is just against science, and I'm not going to pretend to take a side that is not based in reality. I think all of us, like for sports, whatever, play devil's advocate, but for this, it's no. There's enough misinformation out there. We're just going to talk about the facts, and those are the facts. So
exactly. And he claims to be a critical thinker and someone who, it has...
Yeah, so is my butt.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm critical of his thinking.
Really exactly. He took ivermectin. By recommendation of Joe Rogan, the BBC came out with an article in October that 1/3 of all of the major ivermectin studies that have said that, it works to cure coronavirus have been wildly discredited for egregious fraud, scientific fraud, where they're literally copy pasting patient data to make it look like it's worked more than it has, or the reporting percentage is wrong. Just things that have completely taken these studies and say, those are garbage studies. He didn't critically think about that at all before he put ivermectin, a horse dewormer, into his body. Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
I don't like horses.
Well, we don't think that COVID comes from horse worms right now, so
you don't know that.
Seems unlikely to help.
You don't know that.
Yeah, all that being said, I'm starting him this weekend in fantasy football. So.
I am too.
Shameless. Shameless.
And so we'll head over to the Kyrie side of it in a second. Just to wrap it up, this is not only about the Packers and Aaron Rodgers, but other executives around the league are like, what the fuck? We've all been doing these protocols, and for some reason Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are okay. Yes, the Packers got fined $300K. Yes, Aaron Rodgers got fined a whopping $14K. I mean, I'll probably see him out on the streets soon, because I don't know how he's going to financially recover from that. But it's hilarious because I looked it up and there's this Yahoo Sports article that popped up. CeeDee Lamb getting fined more than Aaron Rodgers for not tucking in his shirt like a good boy. So it's just
this thing too. It's the end. Like at that point, I'm just so on board with CeeDee Lamb. Like these guys make so much money that $15K, maybe that's appropriate for not tucking in your shirt the way you should be.
Dude.
Aaron Rodgers is putting people's livelihood at risk and actively lying about it and breaching protocols that have been arrived at through the Players Association agreement with the NFL. He should be getting fined so much more than CeeDee Lamb is getting fined for not tucking in his shirt.
I mean, I think he should have gotten
completely
suspended.
agree. Absolutely, completely agree.
Yeah.
I will point out too, you mentioned the $300,000 fine to the franchise, which is a significant fine. There is no owner here to pay this bill. There's nobody who's going to hold him accountable because of this fine. This is a public company. This company is owned by shareholders, most of which are Packers fans. So who's footing this $300,000 bill? Shareholders.
Jesus.
People who watch his games on Sunday, who now he sat out a game. Also, their stock that they're counting on for retirement or whatever it is now going to hurt because they're taking a $300,000 hit because this guy can't tell the truth.
And PR nightmare.
Wear a mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Now, so let's switch over to the Kyrie. Because we talked about the NFL, we talked about Aaron Rodgers. Let's see the contrast to the NBA and Kyrie Irving situation. Kyrie Irving has not played a single game this season because of his IG Live participation. And no, so here's the real situation that's happened. Kyrie Irving, critical thinker. I mean, his thinking is very critical. Is the Earth flat? He would say,
may never know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. He, I think, might have stood at the edge of the Earth and saw, what other people believed is it's flat. No, but this guy, Kyrie Irving, he's a great player. I mean, we can all agree he is fantastic.
He's better than I am.
I don't know. I'm close, but he's pretty good. No, he is not playing because he decided not to take the vaccine. Similar to Aaron Rodgers, who sat out recently. But he decided not to take the vaccine, and there was a lot of talk, speculation, because like Aaron Rodgers, a lot of the league fans were left in the dark. For months before the season started, Kyrie Irving just refused to talk about it. He refused to give his position, refused to say whether he's vaccinated, until it was time to play fucking basketball in a state that this is so this is a little different than the NFL. Kyrie Irving lives in a state where you have to play basketball in this arena with all these thousands of people around. You have to be vaccinated. So he's in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, to be clear, you can't be a fan at this game without being vaccinated.
Yeah.
That's the deal here. You can't be sitting in a restaurant without proof of vaccination. Can't be sitting in the stadium without proof of vaccination.
And I will say that that's true in a lot of places for fans, even in some where that's not the case for players.
Yeah.
So in some regard, fans are being held to a higher standard than players, which I guess you could justify in some regard because you're shoulder to shoulder with way more people. But the players are bumping up against each other. Like they're face to face.
They're practically kissing each other on some of those, square ups when they're getting mad at each other.
I mean, if Lance Stevenson's in the game, you get some air in your ear.
Oh yeah, no, he is blowing that coronavirus straight into LeBron's ear.
Yeah.
No, and so constantly before the season, reporters are asking, where's Kyrie? Asking Steve Nash, the head coach, asking star player Kevin Durant, star player James Harden, where is your third star? Where is the big three? And they're just like, I don't know, ask him. And he wasn't there, obviously, because he's not vaccinated. And so finally, right before the season starts, we get this nugget from him from Instagram Live. Let me play this. This is his explanation on why he didn't want to get the vaccination.
Do whatever I want with this. This is one body that I get here, one God body that I get here. And you telling me what to do with my body has nothing to do with the Nets, it has nothing to do with my teammates. This has everything to do with what's going on in our world. And I'm being grouped in to something that's bigger than just a game of basketball. Just know I'm rocking with all those that have lost their jobs to this mandate. And I'm rocking with all those that chose to get vaccinated and are choosing to be safe as well. I'm on both sides of all this. It's not about being anti-vax or about being, on one side or the other. Like, it's just really about being true to what feels good for me. I'm still uncertain about a lot of things, and that's okay. If I'm going to be demonized for having more questions and taking my time to make a decision with my life, then that's just what it is. Basketball is like a religion. Entertainment is like a religion to people. They get so caught up emotionally. It's just like, yo, effing get vaccinated or just leave. We angry at what you're doing, man. And it's just like, nah, that's like, what are you talking about? I'm a human being. I have emotions. I have feelings. I have thoughts. Pay attention to what's going on out in the real world. People are losing their jobs to these mandates. People are having to make choices with their own lives, which I respect. And I don't want to sit here and play on people's emotions either. Just use logic. If you felt uncomfortable going into the season when you were promised that you would have exemptions or that you didn't have to be forced to get the vaccine, this wasn't an issue before the season started. This wasn't something that I foresaw coming, where I prepared for it. It's crazy times we're in. It's crazy times. How many people are really thinking with a balanced view? How many people are really thinking about the future of what's going on? We just came out of one of the craziest pandemics of all time, and you telling me to think rationally. How many people are really thinking rationally? Because it's going to continue to revolve around this and that, and you're going to lose out on money, and you're going to lose out on this. So what? It's not about the money, baby. It's not always about the money. It's about choosing what's best for you. You think I really want to lose money? You think I really want to give up on my dream to go after a championship? You think I really just want to give up my job? You think I really just want to sit at home and not go after the things with my teammates that I've been able to grow with, to learn with?
That is a great soundbite, man. For all the wrong reasons.
You just did a whole lot of nothing, man.
That was the consensus when this video came out. Is, what are you smoking, Kyrie? Where are you? Where is Kyrie?
He's like, I didn't see this coming. Bruh, then you just talked about how we've been in a crazy pandemic for a whole year. How have you not seen this coming? Adam Silver in March the year before, or the March before, was saying, yes, we anticipate like all players are likely going to get vaccinated. Like, where were you if you didn't see this coming?
Yeah, I do have, I think, a slightly different view here, which is I by no means agree with his decision making here, and I think Kyrie certainly has not shied away from having some pretty unpopular opinions and views that he's vocalized in the past. I can respect this guy coming out and saying, I'm willing to sacrifice these things for what I believe in here. I don't believe the same things as him, but fine. You're upfront about it. You come out, you say, I'm willing to die on this hill and draw this line, and I don't care what you do. You can't get me there for $30 million. You can't get me there for a championship ring. You can't get me there with this or that. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to say it out loud and stand by it. And at the very least, I can respect that, just him being a human, him being a man, and just standing by his beliefs there. And that, to me, is why this is such a, this is a Kirk Cousins scenario. This is not Aaron Rodgers to me.
No, yeah, I
Totally.
know, and thanks for bringing that up. And yeah, I certainly, he deserves just like way more respect than, say, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you're right. He's upfront about it, and he's not, by taking the L on the money and the whatever, he's not putting anybody in danger. And that, to me, is the biggest thing. I mean, he talked about how people are telling him, hey, like, you're giving up on the money and all this stuff. He didn't once talk about how potentially if he makes that decision and plays, he's putting people in danger. And that, to me, is the thing that's like most concerning. And if he's going to take the L on those things and not put people in danger, yeah, I respect the shit out of that for sure. Because he's dealing with the consequences of his actions and not putting people in danger because of his actions.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that is a good point. This is not, we're comparing Aaron Rodgers and Kyrie, but we're comparing it in a way as saying that Kyrie is not lying. He is not putting people in harm's way. I think for me, I just think that if you're gonna deny getting the vaccine or you're going to be an anti-vaxxer, he says he's on both sides. He says he's not an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
Where are you, Kyrie? Where are you? Where are you? Yeah, where are you? Like,
no, I think that's a great point because, I mean,
are you? Did you fly off the fucking earth? Like, did you go too far to the edge, Kyrie? Are you gone?
He has an obligation to his team, and to his job. And if he's not an anti-vaxxer, go get vaccinated and do the thing that you signed up to do. I mean, and if you are an anti-vaxxer, you should not put ambiguity around that. Because honestly, that's the part that takes a little bit away from the respect that I just gave him. I mean, if he's going to say, I'm anti-vax, I'm not playing, I'm going to take the L on everything, that's one thing. That's your decision. Do your thing, deal with the consequences. But to say, I'm not going to get the vaccine, but I'm not anti-vax, it's then why are you doing this?
And when you have Donald Trump Jr., and you have Ted Cruz advocating for what you're doing, you're on a side. You're on a side. I even if you didn't want to be, you are now, bud. I'm sorry to say, but from now on, I mean, when I think of Kyrie and his vaccination views, I'm going to be like, well, Don Jr. thinks that's a good idea, so fuck me.
I mean, he's become a face, in the same way that I was saying that it's dangerous for Aaron Rodgers to justify his position by saying he's done the research and he's a critical thinker. Kyrie's put himself in a position that he's making a stand on a hill, and he's saying, I think that this stand is worth $35 million or whatever to make this stand. You've picked a side, and now you're the face of an anti-vax movement in some regard. Sorry, bud. You did that to yourself.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
I just think also him. What also kind of bothered me was he just brought up the people who lost their job to the vaccination mandate so many times. I mean, you heard it in that one clip, and that wasn't even the whole IG Live interview. But it's like, maybe bring up the 750,000 people that died. It's like,
Exactly. The people who lost their jobs.
Jobs are good, but I think life is a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, those people who lost their jobs, like, they have a right to make that choice to not get vaccinated and find work elsewhere where it's not mandated. But the people who died, they didn't have a choice in it. That just happened because people around them weren't vaccinated.
So what? I mean, if you're the Brooklyn Nets here, what do you do?
I agree with what they've done. I mean, the mandate that's in place for the state of New York bars Kyrie from participating in home games, and the organization agreed that they didn't want him to participate in the away games and practices and stuff like that. The mandate prevents him from being at home games and practices and stuff like that in New York, but it would have enabled him to still take part in the team's ongoings on the road, and the organization said they didn't want to do that.
Don't worry, he's still making money off those road games.
Yes, no, exactly. He's only losing money for the ones that the state of New York won't let him play in. The other ones that the organization has decided to not let him play in, he's still making money for that. And I commend the organization because they're taking the L on the money. They're not getting any benefit of this superstar, but they're protecting their staff and players. To me, that's what's most important. I mean, you could say that, outside of the mandate, Kyrie can play, but what if he brings the virus into the locker room? And now, yes, the players that are vaccinated, they have a low chance of contracting and transmitting the virus, but it's still present. And if you have a couple breakthrough cases in that locker room, now you're losing other pieces of your team because this guy doesn't want to play by the rules that your team has set for itself.
Is there any trade market for this guy whatsoever at this point? Is there a team out there that doesn't have these kinds of rules upon them by their local government that has any interest in making a move for Kyrie?
Philly.
Yeah, no, I think there are. Unfortunately, but he would still be prevented from playing in New York as of now. And I hope that the NBA as a whole can solidify their rules a bit more, because I think the NBA should be enforcing rules on par with New York State. If the state government is worried about the transmission of this virus, the CDC is worried about the transmission of this virus in settings like basketball arenas.
I think in California too, right?
Yeah. But
there's a few states.
Yeah, there's a few.
Yeah.
But I think the NBA could have, it would have polarized people certainly, but the NBA allowed for more ambiguity in these rules such that it became more of a personal issue when something like this happened, as opposed to it being just like more of a blanket protocol that people just need to follow.
Yeah, and I bring up this because this article about Magic Johnson, just because I'm a Laker fan, I love Magic. I mean, he's just that guy. You can see he's always smiling. And it's sad to see him get dragged into this fucking nonsense. People comparing Kyrie's situation to Magic Johnson's and saying basically like, well, Magic was allowed to play like when he was diagnosed with HIV. And that's just so fucked up. It's such a different disease.
It's not transmitted in the same way.
Yeah.
It's so uninformed about the true nature of these pathogens, and you're right. I think it's unfair to Magic Johnson to be brought into this conversation.
Yeah. And he is just such a good player. He was such a good player. Probably people would say, Steph and Magic, maybe Isaiah Thomas, best point guards of all time.
And it ignores the fact that Magic was all but forced out of the league. For his diagnosis.
He basically was.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really allow him to play. He was pushed out because of his diagnosis there.
And there's no vaccine.
And you know what? Kyrie wasn't. I think it's interesting to look at. We talked a decent bit about Andrew Wiggins last episode.
True.
Wiggins was not vaccinated, applied for exemption, was denied, and then chose to do what he had to do to get onto the court.
Yeah.
I mean,
I want to bring up that vaccine mandates are not new. Like, people are acting like, oh, the big government is forcing me to make this injection. Like, we didn't all have to meet vaccination requirements to go to elementary
Yeah,
school.
I hate to break to people, we're all vaccinated.
Right. Like, the big scare around these new vaccines is that it's the first mRNA vaccine, and it's the fastest rolled out vaccine in history. But that doesn't mean that we don't understand it. That doesn't mean that we haven't studied it. That doesn't mean that we're just getting better at making vaccines. Sorry we came up with a vaccine so fast. It worked. We studied it. We put it through trials, and we're going to mandate it in a similar way that we mandated vaccines in the past. Like, it just, to me, seems so it's like I watched a Jon Stewart special the other day where he was talking about freedom isn't free. Like people use this as this argument. They're like, oh, I'm free. Like, I get to decide what I do with my body. But it's like we as a country are a free country because and part of that is enabled by the fact that we can make collective decisions that what is best for everybody. And what's best for everybody is that we all take on the minor risks that are present. Not to say they're not there, but we all take on the super minor risks that are present by getting vaccinated in order to prevent against the major risks that are posed by the pathogens from which they protect, which is 750,000 people have died in this pandemic. That's unreal. Just unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so
No, and I was just going to say, no, that's a really good point. It is, and here is the issue I'm bringing up again with the politics in sports. Is Rob Parker on The Odd Couple with Chris Broussard and Rob Parker of Fox Sports. They had this episode on their podcast talking about how Kyrie is going to be on the All-Star ballot. And we've seen in the past players who have no earthly business being an All-Star getting millions of votes. We've seen it in the past with popular players who are just whatever, injured, fell out of their prime.
Zaza Pachulia.
Yeah, exactly. So Rob Parker is talking, and he's like, I bet this is going to get hijacked by the right, by conservatives, which Kyrie's whole thing already has. I showed the article with Don Jr. and Ted Cruz. What if this happens where every anti-vaxxer conservative just floods the ballot and votes Kyrie in? What a spit in the face, I think, of the All-Star game and of people's of players' livelihoods. You get a max contract when you're an All-Star. You get an elevated contract, or you're at least eligible for it. And you get a lot of other things when you become an All-Star. You get recognition, you get deals, advertising deals. And Kyrie could take this spot away from some players.
If his organization is not agreeing to let him play right now, he should not be on that ballot. He's not a basketball player in this season. Why should he be considered as an all-star for this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible he gets some fan votes. I think probably likely. I think there's zero chance he actually. I mean, you can't just get the fan votes. You also have to get peer votes. You've got to get media votes.
Sure.
So I see zero chance that he ends up as a true contender for one of these all-star teams.
Yeah.
But I think that it will be interesting to see how or if that plays out. I'm curious. We mentioned if you're Brooklyn, what do you do? Is there any team out there that if you're GM, you start making calls about Kyrie Irving?
Totally.
I'm sure. Yeah, totally. I'm sure. Unfortunately, I think.
So give me somebody who Who makes a call for Kyrie Irving?
Philly, for sure. That's the name. That's what
Philly.
screams out at me. I mean, Brooklyn, the knock on them is they have the scoring but don't have the defense. Ben Simmons, defensive, pass first, point guard. And the knock on Philly is they need a second scorer that isn't a big next to Joel Embiid. I think the problem is, I think Philly GM, he plays hardball. I'm forgetting his name. He used to be the Rockets GM.
Daryl Morey.
Daryl Morey, yes. He plays hardball with trades. We've seen it in Houston. It's like he's getting the whole fucking buffet, or he ain't getting anything.
Yeah, and if I'm him, I think Ben Simmons is so much more valuable as a just a trade asset than Kyrie is. I don't see that as even comparable at this point. I mean, like a Kyrie that can show up to work no matter where you're playing, 100%, probably more valuable. But a Kyrie that you can't even play in a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup, like
True.
do you really give up a cornerstone for that?
I was quick to say that yes, that exists, because I think Kyrie happens to be in one of the most politically one of the most rigorous states when it comes to COVID mandates.
Yeah. They got hit. New York got hit so hard.
They got hit hard, and I commend a lot of the work that they did in order to keep New York City safe. This disease it thrives in a place like New York City. Yeah. Like that's prime real estate for COVID-19, and so they had to go on the real aggressive when it came to those mandates. And so I'm quick to say that there are places that didn't see the freezer trailers of bodies that New York had to see.
Yeah.
Didn't see quite how it affected people. Weren't as visual experiencers of the tragedies that this pandemic brought, and politically live in an environment that has far more leeway when it comes to something like this. And so I'm certain that there are places that just because of that, like even with the potential that they would have to sit him for a playoff series, they're like, I'd rather him get us to the playoffs and not be able to play that than not have him.
So that's what I'm curious as to who that team is.
Yeah.
Like, is it Dallas?
I'll throw a name out.
Do the Mavericks? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Mavericks. No, that's really good. I didn't think of that. I was going to say the Charlotte Hornets.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of trade assets. They almost have too many young, partially old players too, like Terry Rozier, where you could. They don't, and the Charlotte Hornets don't need all that. What they need now is they need veteran players to get them over the hump. And so maybe you ship like PJ Washington hasn't been amazing. He's been kind of hurt, and Miles Bridges has been killing it. You ship out him and someone else, Terry Rozier, for Kyrie, and you get LaMelo Ball and Kyrie. Like,
it's a hell of a buy low scenario.
Yeah, I think, and the Hornets are so close. They started out good, and now they're kind of losing, and it's just they're young, and the veterans that they have aren't like very like super clutch, and I think that could be a really good fit. Dallas is really interesting too.
Yeah, I don't know. They don't have much draft capital, or rather trade assets, but I don't know that it will take much at this point. I look at maybe the Pacers.
Pacers, true.
I don't know. Do the Pacers give up Malcolm Brogdon to get Kyrie Irving?
Yeah.
If I'm Brooklyn, I take and I get offered Malcolm Brogdon for Kyrie Irving. I'm jumping for joy.
Yeah. No.
Especially Brogdon just this season thus far has been
really
just
good. Defensively,
on fire.
Offensively, really.
So I think the bar is so low, I think, for what potentially Brooklyn has to be offered in order to give up Kyrie right now.
I'll throw out another team. I just thought of this. The Kings. You send out Buddy Hield, which was already in talks, and another piece, maybe even Malvin Badgley, that's his name.
Yeah, Marvin.
Yeah, he wants out. Buddy Hield has been in many trade talks already, and the Kings aren't terrible because they usually are.
Well, I think that's a great team fit. I think the problem you run into is you got another California team. He can't play.
Shit. I forgot about that. No, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So you slim down your trade pool so quickly. You know, like you almost have to go to a select few teams and then see what those people are willing to give up. I mean, does Tim Hardaway Jr. get the job done for Dallas? Is it him and salary filler? Do you take that if you're the Nets?
What if
I don't know.
I honestly, you give up Porzingis, and
go back to New York. Porzingis goes back to New York,
but to Brooklyn, and you have.
I don't think Dallas can afford to get rid of Porzingis. I mean, they have these other really tall guys, but none of them are solid. None of them can hold down that paint on their own.
I just think Porzingis is overrated. I think that's just me personally. I think Porzingis is overrated, but with a team like Brooklyn, I think is perfect for him, where he doesn't need to be the second star. He's tried to be the second star for Dallas, and it hasn't worked out. I mean, we've seen that 2 years in a row. They've exited first round.
Yeah. I agree that Porzingis would do great on the Nets.
Yeah.
But I don't think Dallas can afford to get rid of him.
Possibly.
I mean,
possibly. That's very well could be.
Maxi Kleba, right? Like,
hey,
White Owl.
Hey, watch yourself. Yeah. Boban. What about Boban?
Bobby. Yeah, I don't think it takes a Kristaps. Does that hurt? Like, you're Kevin Durant, right? You came here with Kyrie Irving. You came to Brooklyn so that you could come here with Kyrie Irving. If you're Kevin Durant at this point, are you like, fuck it, move on?
But that's what I think.
Or are you going to be upset if Kyrie's dealt?
Exactly. I think the only way Kevin Durant isn't upset is if he gets a caliber player that's like, okay, fuck, we could win really well with him. And I've seen the Brooklyn Nets roll out this lineup where KD's the fucking 5. So you'd be like, KD, here you go. Here's Kristaps. He can shoot the 3. He'll play the 5. You can play the 4. I think KD's like, damn, like that. I'd be down to ship my best friend.
I think the Nets would jump at that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, turn in a Kyrie that you're not playing into someone like Kristaps. Even if you don't entirely overrate Kristaps as a lot of people I think are, like, that's a great deal for the Nets.
And I just think Dallas, they get close. Like, you've seen their playoff exits. They get close, but they can't finish it. And I just think Kyrie is that clutch. Like Doncic can get them to the fourth quarter, but Doncic needs some help closing that out. I think Kyrie's the perfect player for that. I mean, we've seen it.
Look, Luka plays in many ways as similar of a role to LeBron as anybody.
Yeah.
And we've seen LeBron succeed with combo guards that, aren't true distributors. They're really scorers first, time after time, whether that was Kyrie or D Wade. So I think it's a good fit. I don't think they give up Kristaps for him.
Yeah.
In which case you look at that and say, what do they have?
They don't have anything else. I mean, I think it's Kristaps or bust at that point.
I mean, Jalen Brunson is balling this season so far, but I still don't think he comes close to But then the conversation does get interesting. Like, if the Nets are looking at a guy that they aren't playing, how low would they go, even if it is Kyrie?
Exactly.
I think it's higher than you guys are giving them, because it's not about Kyrie, it's about KD, really.
Yeah.
If you ship out KD's best friend for fucking
Jalen Brunson
and Tim Hardaway Jr., KD's having some choice words with Brooklyn Nets front office.
You're absolutely right.
He is pissed.
It's tough to say what the future is going to hold too. I mean, like, what coronavirus and therefore Kyrie look like in the future is unclear. I mean, Delta variant came out of nowhere, changed the script all over again just after vaccines hit. And if the anti-vax movement is perpetuated further by people like Kyrie and Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee there's going to be another variant breakout at some point. And the question becomes, how long is this going to affect the way that the NBA operates?
Yeah.
And if it's going to continue to affect the way that the NBA operates, Kyrie's value in terms of holding on to him for some future just crashes.
If the Nets don't win the championship this season, Kyrie's value will plummet. I think it could go up. I could see people saying, "Oh, well, they didn't have Kyrie," but I think it plummets because people are just going to be like, "Hey, they had him on the roster, but they can't play him. Do you want this to happen on your team, your playoff push? You want to go back and be like, well, they didn't have Kyrie, so."
Right now, the census
I got two teams for you guys. All right. One, we talked about Minnesota earlier this week, and D'Lo there. And the second one that I'll bring up is we also talked about Milwaukee struggling to start the season. These are two teams that local government laws wise would be more favorable to Kyrie. Is there any movement on those fronts?
No way. Those Bucks and Nets are helping each other out. Are you kidding me?
No, yeah, and I think the Bucks aren't worried about this.
Yeah, you're probably
they're
right.
in the midst of a beginning of a rivalry. No way they fucking help each other out.
And I don't think the Bucks are that worried about their slow start. They've been dealing with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, you heard Giannis. Said something like, "We're chilling. We're fine."
Yeah.
Well, then I don't know who makes that move.
I don't think anyone. If I'm being honest, so let's.
Right now, I don't think anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the sense in the scientific community right now is that COVID's going to be endemic, and every year, like the flu, it's going to kind of reemerge in some regard. And if that's going to be the case, NBA season starts in beginning of mid-October. That's right around when flu season's starting to hit. Every year, it's going to be a consideration.
Oh yeah.
And
I don't. You can be an NBA player and not have a flu shot. So I have a hard time believing that these sort of more emergency laws are going to truly stick around.
They're going to trickle.
And be that
they already have been
stringent.
trickling out, definitely.
I think
it's a ticking clock until they buckle and allow these players to.
I think it remains to be seen, because when I say it's going to be like the flu, it's going to the pattern of reinfection and resurgence of prevalence is going to map somewhat similar to the flu. It seems like that's going to be the case, but it's still killing way more people than the flu.
No, totally. But people don't give a shit about those numbers, as we've seen.
You're absolutely right. I think one of the most telling examples of that for me is that this flu season has been the lowest prevalence of flu ever, basically, since flu has been on our radar. The amount of flu cases that have been reported has been something like just over 200, maybe 250 cases in the United States since the beginning of October. That's unreal. Every single year, our country experiences approximately 40-some thousand people that die from flu. And the incidence of flu is down over 100x, which means that there's probably around 35,000 plus people that didn't die this year that normally would have, and nobody cares. And that's because of masks. That's really just because of masks and social distancing.
And I think people who haven't gotten the flu shots in the past are like, well, fuck, COVID's scary. I'm going to get my flu shot. Like like someone I know just literally said that exact same thing to me. They're like, well, fuck, I mean, I ain't going to. Yeah.
So Matt, I think you're right in that, like, we see the pandemic fatigue of people starting to not care about these things as the pandemic has dragged on. But then you get a massive resurgence like Delta, and we have to backtrack and do everything all over again, which enables the virus to mutate and perpetuates the pandemic even farther. And so I think that it's going to be a tight wire walk between
what this virus is going to do to us as a population and how people get tired of dealing with it over time. And because of that, I have no idea what the future holds. And so it's really tough to say what the long-term effect on the NBA is going to be.
Yeah. No, it's the fatigue has set in, and the mandates and all that stuff is trickling away. But we'll see. All right, let's do this fun thing before we had really good episode, but at the end, let's do something that Jeremy likes very much. Let's do some bets on these games tonight. What do you guys think?
Let me pull up the slate.
Let's see. So we
Tonight's
got
game?
Yeah, we got. All right, Heat are absolutely killing the Jazz. Great sign from the Heat. They lost both games in LA.
Smoking them. Yeah. Oh, and I will just want to shout out while we've been on live here, going live.
We're live, baby.
From all across the country.
Doing it live.
We're live.
Chris news has come out, which is particularly fantasy relevant, but also just football fans. Chris Godwin will be looking to play this week. So he's been questionable all week, missed 2 practices this week. It's coming out. He is believed to be suited up.
It's exciting for you, Matt. It's exciting
It is
for you.
exciting for me.
OBJ.
I'd put almost any amount of money that I'm going to lose this week anyways. but yeah, yes, he does appear to be coming back. Antonio Brown is still out. Scotty Miller's still out. So he looks to step into a sizable role this week.
Yeah, OBJ.
Right,
OBJ is in a Rams uniform. That's what I just showed.
Wow.
On the field. I'm stoked. So let's see. Okay, I think we can all agree. Grizzlies, Pelicans. We can agree that the Grizzlies are gonna win, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Matt, you wanna bet on that one? I hope not.
No, I'd like to, but no.
All right, Wizards, Magic. I'd probably bet on the Wizards.
I'll give you one that I don't may or may not be a hot take. We'll see what you guys think.
Okay.
I'll put down something right now that the Cavs beat the Celtics today.
Oh, I like that. I would actually say I would agree, but I'll take that action.
Yeah. All right, let's go.
What do you say? Yeah, we'll discuss the details in our group chat because I'm in Washington and technically I'm not allowed to bet. But so if you hear this, Washington officials, I'm not betting. But I'll take that action.
What do we think about 86ers Pacers? That's the game that I think will be.
Is Joel Embiid playing? Is the real question.
Game. Oh yeah. That's a great question. Let's see.
Do we know?
No, he's
Has
not.
Has it come out yet?
Maxey,
he's not playing.
Yeah, Maxey. Looks like.
All right, well, I'll put this out there. Despite the fact that Embiid is not playing, I take Sixers over Pacers.
I take that action. I will take
that action.
Take that.
All right, we're gonna. This is a league of record here. I'm gonna be taking this down, and we will revisit this next time around we go live, and we will see who's got bragging rights.
Yeah,
and
that's all we're betting. State of Washington.
Idiot.
I'll actually take some action on T-Wolves Clippers. Actually, what do you guys think
I'm
about
taking
that?
the Clippers.
Oh, Clippers.
I'll take T-Wolves. They looked really good against. They looked really good against the Lakers. That might just because the Lakers suck ass, but they looked good, dude. Cat was on a mission. I'll take that action.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll definitely take that.
Yeah,
action.
gladly.
Put me down. Put me down for that. I'm taking it.
Consider yourself down for it.
Yeah. I'm down. I'm so down. All right, well that wraps up this episode. We promised it wasn't going to be a long one, but it was a little long. So hope you guys stuck around. Yeah, we'll be doing another episode. We have a few really good a few really good topics. We got Raiders, just mess.
You're gonna hear me rant about the Raiders this coming week.
We got
I got things to say.
We got taunting calls in the NFL. Maybe we start with that and then we do Raiders because we all kind of NFL stuff. So yeah, check out the next probably next week for that episode. And yeah, make sure to like and subscribe on Twitch, on our YouTube channel, and on Twitter too. I've been tweeting and make sure to follow that as well. But yeah, make sure to catch all those games. I'll be watching to get some of that action.
That's what I love. Action.
All right. See you
Yeah,
guys
thanks
on
for
the
listening, guys.
flippity flop.
Great time.